In the latest on that story, the Lebanese health ministry says at least 13 people were killed and close to 60 hurt in that Israeli strike near Hariri Hospital in Beirut. Well, we're going to talk a bit more about the U.S. Secretary of State's visit to the Middle East with our international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorjestani, who joins me on the set. Kethevane, Antony Blinken has a lot on his plate for this trip, his 11th trip now to the region. What are the main goals he's hoping to achieve this time, or at least what's he pushing for?
Well, according to the State Departments, there are several points and several areas on which he wants to sort of start the talks. The first one and the main focus, of course, is the situation in Gaza. That is the main goal of Antony Blinken's trip. And the focus on Gaza is threefold. One is to end the war, end the hostilities, have that long-eluded ceasefire in Gaza, release the hostages, obtain the release of the hostages, and to alleviate the suffering of Palestinians. This, of course, pointing to the humanitarian situation. And remember that Antony Blinken did send a letter of warning to the Israelis, saying that if within the next 30 days you don't significantly increase humanitarian aid, the U.S. will have to reconsider possibly withholding some of the weapons shipments. So that is for the Gaza part. But of course, as we've been talking about at France 24, there are plenty of other areas of focus, the other one being, of course, the situation in Lebanon. There, the Americans are also trying to sort of reach a diplomatic resolution, the way they call it, between Israel and Hezbollah. There is the special envoy of the United States who is currently in Lebanon, and he said that it wasn't just about bringing back the UN resolution, the 1701, that sort of created this area at the border that was supposed to be guarded by UN peacekeeping forces. He said that that is not enough just for both parties to go back to recommit to that resolution, that more needs to be done, and that the U.S. is looking for ways to make sure that that resolution can be implemented and what more needs to be done. And finally, overshadowing all of this is, of course, something that we've all been waiting for ever since the Israelis said we will retaliate against Iran, is how and when the Israelis will retaliate. The public messaging of the Americans right now is that Israel is alone in deciding when and where to retaliate. But of course, there's a lot of negotiations. We heard the president of the United States, Joe Biden, publicly say, do not target nuclear sites. He's also said pretty much the same things when it comes to the oil targets. And the reporting in the U.S. is that when they had that call between Benjamin Netanyahu and Joe Biden, that Netanyahu may have told Joe Biden that they would be following those requests by the Americans not to strike nuclear sites, not to strike oil sites, and focus on military sites. The public messaging of the Israelis and of Netanyahu is that Israel will decide when it comes to its own national interest how and when they respond to the Iranians.
And as I was saying before, this is Antony Blinken's 11th trip to the regions. His previous visits really haven't come up with much of anything concrete. Is there any sign that things could be different this time?
Yes, the results of the American diplomacy so far haven't been really great. Previous U.S. efforts, as I was saying, to secure a ceasefire in Gaza have failed. Containing the regional fallout of the situation in Gaza, that also has failed. The attempt by Joe Biden with the French president, Emmanuel Macron, to strike a temporary ceasefire in Lebanon, that has also failed. The only relative success that you could point to is the issue of humanitarian aid. Not overall, but it is true that when the Americans have really pushed the Israelis on trying to reopen some corridors or bringing in more humanitarian aid, and we've seen it in the past week, that there has been a movement on that front. That is really the one area of relative success. That said, the U.S. Insists that right now is a moment of opportunity. This, of course, coming after the killing of Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas. They see that as a possibility, an opportunity that needs to be seized by the Israelis to sort of move forward, because they saw Sinwar as the major obstacle to peace in Gaza. But The Israelis don't really seem inclined to follow that. We've seen renewed strikes and operations in northern Gaza, renewed strikes in Beirut, and of course the preparation for that major retaliation on Iran.
All right, Kethevane, thanks for that. France 24's Kethevane Gorjestani.